Hello there, many thanks for joining us in our Friday Business News Report. It's now time to bring you the feature on the show today as we focus on infrastructure development. Now, currently, more than half of the world's population lives in cities. Now, it has been estimated that over the next 30 years, surge in population will require sustainable urban planning and the construction of new urban areas to accommodate an extra 3 billion people. The explosive population growth will definitely create challenges such as containing traffic congestion, which costs society billions, and fashioning an infrastructure that enables mobility and access to green urban spaces for all citizens. Now, many large cities have already addressed these challenges and invested in new, welcoming urban spaces. Now, for cities in Africa, the journey to tunneling and underground infrastructure in spaces is taking center stage. Now, for the most part, the pace is slow. Now, for Nigeria, towards ensuring the need to meet infrastructural needs of this population by 2050, the federal government has been urged to put in place necessary legal framework for the adoption of tunneling and underground space technology in the country. Joining me now virtually to discuss this and much more, I have Abidemi Agwo, is also a tunneling and underground space professional and also the president of Tunneling Association of Nigeria. Thank you very much for joining us on the Breakfast Show this morning, Mr. Agwo.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today.
Let's now start this conversation with cities in Africa developing this fresh quest to become the hub for economic and technological advancement. We see what plays out in countries like Mauritius, Egypt, Kenya, South Africa, and Morocco, with dreams to develop at the pace of Dubai and Qatar, and even the likes of China. Now, strategic tunneling projects and infrastructure, some of the distinguishing elements here, catalyzing transport systems in smart cities. What do you think is the missing link for Nigeria in terms of our town and city planning strategies in terms of tunneling and underground infrastructure?
Thank you very much for that. You've rightly said it. Urbanization in Africa is currently deemed the fastest. Apparently, it's currently at about 45%. And if I would explain that a little bit more, so that is the population of a country residing in key cities, that is in a small part of the city. And obviously, you're looking at a rapid increase in population without a corresponding increase in the landmass. That would create challenges, as you rightly said. And you did talk about countries like Kenya, you talked about Egypt, South Africa, looking to become hubs like Qatar and Dubai, as well as China. And Nigeria rightly should be in that category because we aspire, to be a mega, well, especially Lagos, a mega city. And so the biggest challenge that I see is the fact that there's a significant lack of awareness, the capacity to educate ourselves with regards to the benefit of tunneling and underground space use is currently lacking. And most importantly, there's no the capacity development regime is currently not there in terms of you're looking at it from the academia, you're looking at it from the kind of professional route as well. But I would also like to mention the fact that, most of these countries you mentioned earlier, they had the vision to implement this, and they've basically worked, through this vision. And I would, apart from being a tunneling and underground space professional, I'm also a part of the International Tunneling and Underground Space Association, which is the foremost body for tunneling and underground space use globally. That's the ITA. And in fact, I'm an executive council member.
Definitely, Mr. Agwo. Now, let's also look at the bigger picture here. We also have to take cognizance of the fact that the rainy season is fast approaching here in the country, and cities like Lagos, with the bustling centers like the Lagos Island axis, which is termed as New Lagos, are prone to flooding. Now, yes, there are no magic wands to be waved, but how do we begin to correct this structural flaw in Lagos infrastructure and drainage system, and then deal with the menace of waste disposal through much more strategic tunnel infrastructure?
Absolutely. So tunneling underground space use gives us a wide spectrum of application. So you've rightly mentioned flood here, and the biggest challenge you have right now has to do with impacts of climate change, and flood happens to be one of them. And Lagos State littoral, as it is a coastal city, is prone, to flood. I would like to give an example of Kuala Lumpur. Kuala Lumpur is a city that is a semblance of Lagos in terms of the fact that they had a big challenge of monsoon flood annually, and they've deployed a solution called the Smart Tunnel. And the Smart Tunnel is basically called a smart water management and road tunnel. So this solution basically addressed two key issues. He addressed an environmental challenge, which is the flood that affects the state and the city yearly. And he also did address the economic and social challenges of congestion in the city. As we all know, Lagos is also a city that faces a lot of problems with regards to traffic and congestion. And so with regards to how tunneling and underground space use can address impacts of climate change, climate adaptation, which is basically infrastructure hardening, can be deployed to alleviate the challenges of flood we have in Lagos. And there are examples of this all over the world. Like I rightly mentioned, the Smart Tunnel is a very good example of this.
Exactly. Now, wrapping up our conversation, let's now look at the state of urban cities of the world. They pride themselves in the utilization of ultra-modern intermodal means of transport, from rail to water, air, and even road. Now, rail is the new focus of the government here in the country, but the report of train attacks is not necessarily pleasing. But let's think in a futuristic and idealistic point of view. Looking through that lens, how do you see underground and tunnel train infrastructure bring new ease in connecting cities in the country to facilitate the movement of people, services, and even induce some level of safety and confidence?
Yeah, absolutely. So Lagos, as an example and a pace setter for the country, is basically effectively deploying its transportation strategic master plan. And I'm really very impressed with how disciplined and how agile they've been able to do this. An example is how they've basically deployed tactically the implementation of the red line by collaborating with the national. So that's basically where you have a national and a sub-national aligning to develop an infrastructure that will ease the movement of people across the city. And the biggest opportunity we have in Lagos is that we have this population, but we need to be able to move them from one part of the city to the other seamlessly. It's okay that we're able to do it through the BRTs or even the light transport that we're building, but examples all over the world will tell you that countries that are winning economically have been able to deploy infrastructure that move people en masse, and that's the mass rapid transit. It's such that they explore on the ground space use, and that is basically what we need that's basically what we need to also do in Lagos. And you talked about Lagos being having a population of 24 million people. You can only imagine the number of ridership you need a day that will be able to accommodate that number of people. And so having tunneling and underground space use as an option for us to be able to connect key nodes in the city will basically do us a great lot of good in terms of economic recovery, especially at this time where we're beginning to look at ways to create resilience in our economies post-COVID moving forward. And more importantly, it gives us a city that will be future-proof.
Thank you so much for your time on The Breakfast Show this morning. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Abidemi Agwa. We've been speaking with tunneling and underground space professional and the president of the Tunneling Association of Nigeria. Thank you once again for your time, Mr. Agwa.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Well, that's it from the business desk. We'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we still have plenty more sports stories coming up shortly with Ikechukwu Obienu. Good morning.